Not eating. Monkey!
Hi, I'm Luke from the Broken Meeple, and today we're not looking at a game that's overly new. It's not like the new hotness, but it's kind of fallen under the wayside last year, and it's only just now starting to appear in a lot of Facebook posts and tweets, and it's coming to the forefront more. And I must admit, I was at first thinking, yeah, I'll just pass it by. I don't know why it was. I think a lot of people are passing this one by. But the more I've heard about it, the more that it's gotten praise, and the more that I've seen the inside of the box, it's like,
get on with it.
Okay, I gotta give this one a look. This is Rajas of the Ganges. I hope I pronounced all that correctly. This is a fairly, I would say, light to medium weight Euro game. It takes about 90 minutes tops and goes up to 4 players. And the idea is that you are Rajas or ranis in a prosperous time of India, and you have your own province, you have your own sort of like landscape, and you're trying to be rich but also prosperous. You want to have fame, but you also want to have money. So you are building up this province full of lavish gardens and various markets and stalls and that, having a nice, rich, fulfilling land. To do this, you are collecting tiles that have the various market stalls on in different buildings, and you're placing them on your personal board in a kind of almost like an Isle of Skye / Carcassonne style format. You want the roads to join up, you can get little bonuses, but you're building up a little mini map in front of you. On the main board itself, you have a worker placement mechanic where you are placing your workers to do various actions on the board, such as sailing up a river to get bonuses, building on your board, selling stuff at the market. You don't actually sell physical goods, you just get money based on how many markets you have, and also to collect more dice. We'll get onto the dice in a minute. The idea is that you're trying to intersect 2 separate tracks on the board. It's not a simple case of, most victory points wins. Here, it's a bit different, because you now have a money track and a fame track. You can argue that fame is pretty much victory points, but the game doesn't end until somebody gets their fame track and their money track, tracked by 2 different counters, all the way around to intersect. And this could be, with like a ton of money and no fame. It could be a ton of fame, no money, or a balance in between. But until someone does that, the game does not end. And typically, that player is the winner. But if multiple people finish in the same, like one turn after them, then it's all based on like, how far apart the 2 markers are. It's basically a tiebreaker. But yeah, it's not a case of, oh, I have 20 fame points, you only have 10, I'm the winner. No, it's who managed to get that balance of fame and money. And that's a really different concept, but I'll talk about that more in a minute. The last thing to mention is the most important resource in this game, other than money, is dice. Here you have a ton of 4 different colours of really nice looking dice, and you have a sort of I forget, is it a Ganesh or a Buddha type thing, that the multi-armed lady. Sorry for my lack of knowledge here, and they hold all the dice. And you use these in order to facilitate the actions on the board. So certain spaces require a certain number of die. The buying of tiles requires you to have certain colours at certain values. You have a little karma track, that allows you to flip the dice to opposite sides to mitigate the die luck. But basically, while using your workers, you're also manipulating these dice and using them in clever ways in order to facilitate your actions. Now, the next thing to mention pretty quickly is the components and art quality. Very good. I mean, the art is not like the most revolutionary art in the world, but it's bright and it's colourful and vibrant. This sticks out, because, not like a sore thumb, sticks out in glory when it's on the table. However, it can be argued that the board is a bit too busy. When you actually get into the crux of the game, then you actually understand where everything is on the board. It sort of clicks and it's a lot easier to grasp and visualise. But when you first open up this board, it's not unusual for players to look at it and go, oh my god, because the board does look pretty busy. It's a busy board. It's a bit of a flaw, but eventually you will get used to it, particularly if you've played the game once before. But it certainly is a bit overwhelming for new players. Other than that though, like I say, the artwork is colourful, the components, the little tokens are decent, but woo, love the dice. These are high quality, gorgeous dice. You know, they're not translucent, but they're sort of solid, very bright colours, different colours. You know, you're not going to confuse orange for purple, say. I mean, I don't know how colourblind people would view these dice, and unfortunately, there's no way to differentiate on the dice whether they are the green dice or not. So yeah, this could cause a bit of a problem for colorblind players, unless green, purple, orange, and blue happens to actually be okay with colorblind people. But yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get this game to the table near anybody I know who was colorblind to test this theory out. But the dice themselves, high quality, big, chunky, you're rolling them constantly because you're collecting dice and you're using them. So if you're like me and you've just got a thing about big chunky dice, this is certainly going to appeal to you in that regard. Unlike a lot of other Euros, this game is actually not that long. Rajas of the Ganges can be done in around 90 minutes tops. If you've got less players and you're familiar with this type of Euro, you could actually wrap this up in about 60 to 75 minutes. If it takes longer than 90, then it's probably your first teaching game and you're new and you've probably got maybe one slow player in there. You know, I've had that happen, but there is no way that this should last any longer than the 2 hours. Not going to happen, even for your first game with 4 players, including slow people. But when you're used to it, this easily gets done in about 60 to 90 minutes tops. It's definitely a quicker Euro than the box and what's involved would have you to believe. And that's a positive. You know, you can get this game done, you can enjoy yourself, you know, you get enough decision making in it to make it worthwhile, and then you can move on to the next game. But the way it catches you out, and this is what screwed me over in my first game of this, you don't realise just how quickly the progression happens. You do a few turns and it's like, well, I got a little bit of money, a little bit of fame, a little bit of this, and you feel like everything's chugging along, but you don't feel like anyone's going to end the game anytime soon. And then it quickly ramps up and gets really going really quickly. It's definitely got a fast, like, crescendo progression system by the time the game starts to end, because you'll think, oh yeah, I've got time to hang around, I'm going to try this long strategy, I'll build up all these markets full of spice, and then every time I go to the spice market I'm going to get loads of money, and then I'll eventually just loop the money track all the way around and I'll win. Trouble is, I didn't realise that somebody else was doing stuff a lot earlier than me and getting miles ahead to the end. It's like, oh, I better actually get a move on. Yeah, quick, do what I got to do. So I played the long game by mistake, not realising how quickly the game can ramp up. So definitely don't try a long-term strategy in this. You need to start acting relatively fast, whether you've built a lot of tiles or not. There's a lot of cool variations on the mechanics. I mean, you've got worker placement, if you're a fan of that. There's a little bit of that on the main board, you know, go to this spot and, you know, it's cheaper if you go there early as opposed to late. You've got a variety of different actions you can go to, some that do special actions from the palace, the boat, the buildings, the market, collecting more dice. You know, there's quite a good variety of spaces, so it's not often that anyone's going to block you out of a space, but they might make it progressively more expensive for you. But on top of the worker placement aspect, you've got the manipulation of the dice, you know, rolling them. It's like the dice are a resource of their own. So you're using the dice as resources to grab the market tiles. On top of that though, you've also got the board in front of you, you know, your province. You're putting tiles on there, and the reason I say Isle of Skye and Carcassonne is because it gives you, I'd say closer to Isle of Skye. Because you're building a little map with the tiles and you'll think, oh yeah, this is like Carcassonne, I'm building a cool little map. But the reason I say it's a bit closer to Isle of Skye is because here, your restriction is that you must build your tiles with at least one road connected to your main residence. In Carcassonne, you know, you've got to build a legal map, but it just did what it liked. With Isle of Skye, you had your castle at the start, and then you tried to get roads to connect to your castle in order to get more income. Similar with this, except it's an actual restriction. But it's another cool little mechanic. You know, you've got to build your map in such a way that you not only can get the cool bonuses for the money or the points for building certain types of buildings that you can upgrade, so you can upgrade how many points certain buildings get you, but you also have the idea that, if I take the tiles to the edge of my province board, I get these cool bonuses. But I need to link the roads there, so I need to be careful which tile I pick up. Cheaper tiles won't have as many road links, whereas the expensive ones will have the road links, allowing you to go in more different directions. So it's got you're juggling a lot of little pieces in this game. Juggling the dice, not literally, but you could. I wonder how good a elephant god Ganeshan that would be good at juggling, but I digress. You've got the map province board and you've got the worker placement. So you've got like a little dab in everything. It's a bit like, actually, I hate to use it stereotype with the fact that we're playing a game themed around India, but it's basically like why I like curry meals so much. You get a bit of everything. I can go, oh yeah, I want that bit of onion bhaji and a bit of a potato thing there. Oh, naan bread, poppadoms, or try these dips, or that curry, that curry. I love variety when it comes to games. I love variety when it comes to my food. And curries, I love going out for a decent curry meal. You want to treat me to a good meal, take me out to the best curry house you can find, and I'll be in my element. But it's a bit like that. You've got all these little bits to do, and it makes the game interesting. Because, you don't get too lumbered with one particular aspect. You've got to do them all in equal measure. You can't underestimate how much you need money, but then you also can't underestimate how much you need the dice as well. Running out of dice does limit your options, but then if you're broke, that's also going to limit your options. And the more you spend money, the slower you're going around the edge of the board, because remember, that money track has got to intersect with your fame track. And fame progresses across the board quicker than money does, but it's a lot easier to get money than it is to get fame. It's wonderfully well balanced, and it's like a interweb of mechanics that just seem to gel well together in a streamlined fashion. The rules to this are not complicated. I set it up expecting to do a walkthrough of the game, and I didn't even have to walk through it. I literally just read the rulebook and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and that makes sense, and yeah, I'm good to go. I literally did like 1 or 2 turns and I was ready to teach the game after that. I didn't even have to watch a video on the subject. It was a relatively straightforward game to learn. It only goes up to 4 players, but I think that's a good thing. With 4 players, if you've got analysis paralysis people, it reaches that cusp of it's probably going to take a little bit too long, but generally with 2 to 4, I will play it with any count. It doesn't take very long at all. With 5 or 6, it'd be kind of pointless, and you don't want this game to go over 90 minutes ideally, because you start getting into a kind of rinse-repeat mode after that. But it is nice that it scales well. I mean, you've got 2 sides of the board, one for 2 players, one for 3 and 4, and you cover up a couple of spaces with 3. This is one of those games where I would happily play it with 2, 3, or 4. I don't find that there's a particular, major variance with it, apart from just obviously a 4th player. Well, yeah, it's going to add more time to the game, so granted, 3 would be my sweet spot again, but 2, 3, or 4, I'd happily play this because it does not drag on. The theme is, cut and paste, okay, it's nice that you've got the statue holding up the dice, and the fact that you've got an elephant starting marker and that, but to be honest, you could theme this in any location and it would still pretty much work. The setting works for the game, and it allows for a very nice set of, a colourful aesthetic and a very cool sort of placeholder for your dice and some nice light touches here and there. But you could paste this theme onto something else, you could paste another theme on top, and it would still work. So the setting works, but yeah, don't expect like a highly thematic experience out of this Euro. So it is more about the dice. If there's any negatives with the game, I have to say, it's more based on what it feels like from the first few games, because you have a couple of variants in the box to change the mode of how you play. And you can basically make your province board a little bit more complex by having yield tokens that you can upgrade as time goes on. It's alright, but I'm not desperate to use it. I think the basic game works just fine. In addition, you also start off with all your workers in that version, whereas in the basic version, you start off with 3, and then you have to unlock a couple of others by either upping your fame, going across the river track, or going up in money. And I like the idea that you can pick and choose which path you're going on to begin with in order to get those workers. You don't have that level of progression in the advanced game. There's a little mini variant where you can chop and change the bonuses on the river track. That's pretty neat, it just keeps the variety alive. You could use it in any game really, take it or leave it, it's not a massive deal. One thing I do like with this though, is that they give you a mixed variant option. You can play this in such a way that beginner and advanced players can have a go. You play with, you don't use the special yield tiles, but you do have the advanced players having less dice to use and, 1 or 2 other handicaps, whereas the beginner player doesn't get that handicap. It's pretty neat, if you have got one player who is brand new, he's got 3 people who have played this game before and he's the only one who hasn't, you can tweak the game slightly to make it easier for them. Now it's not ideal because it means that you're using all 5 of your workers again. You have no choice in the matter. I really like that whole progress to get more workers. I don't really need them all at the start of the game. So it's a little bit fixed, a little bit restrictive, but the option's there. And to be honest, I don't see this in games very often. Not since probably Nations actually, where I've seen a handicap rule done pretty well. Nation still, I think, has the best one because that one really makes a difference when you handicap yourself or give people the advantage in that. But here, it's a nice welcome addition, and I wish that more publishers and designers would start incorporating that into their games because, let's face it, groups are generally quite uneven for a lot of these games, and it's nice to be able to say, you know what, I've played this game 5 times, I'm teaching it to 3 new players, I should be at a handicap to make things a bit fair, because otherwise the players know that I'm going to steamroll them because I've already got experience with the game. So come on designers, we can work on this, alright? And the final minor negative is that there's 1 or 2 spots on the board that people are saying maybe the balance is a little off. I haven't played anywhere near enough games to start commenting on whether the balance is truly great in this game or whether there's 1 or 2 bits, but from what I've noticed, some people out there are saying that the market tiles are a bit too powerful. There's a couple of spaces that don't require you to cough up a die, but you can get about 8 to 9 money from them. I have to admit, that's pretty powerful, but then you do have to spend the dice to get fairly expensive tiles in order to be able to put that into action. And I was doing that in my first game when I said I played the long game. That was my tactic, but I took too long doing it. I should have started sooner. And the one that we thought was a little bit powerful, and like I say, this is not me deducting points for it, this is just an observation we had. There's 6 palace actions for where you can take certain, special actions by coughing up a certain die. Coughing up a 2 value die gets you not only 2 more dice, so you give up 1 die and get 2 different ones, so you're giving up a rubbish value to get 2 more dice, and you also get this little yield bonus token which gets you something like free money, an extra dice, an extra karma, an upgrade. These are reasonable bonuses. And all you have to do is cough up a little 2 in a worker. Seems like a pretty good space. We've been using that a lot in a lot of our games. Now maybe we're overestimating how useful it is, but it certainly comes off as quite powerful, particularly when new players come in, they go, oh yeah, that's pretty good, I'm going to go visit there on a regular basis, and it seems to chop and change as to whether that gets them the win, by accelerating their game enough, or whether they're actually wasting their time and don't realise it. So all in all, I really like this game. It's I wish it was a bit more thematic, and those little points about balance, they do come into question a little bit, and I do wish that maybe some of the variants that they put in and the handicap system weren't quite so restrictive. I would have liked maybe a bit more flexibility in how to tailor the game, whereas they're kind of saying, you want to play it like this? You must do it like this. I wanted a little bit of flexibility here and there. But all in all, I really like it. I'm going to hang on to this one. I think it's a solid, very pretty Euro game that doesn't take too long. Hello people, yes, we can have Euro games that take less than 90 minutes. It's possible, okay? And for this 3-hour nonsense. But, I digress. So, yeah, all in all, I enjoy this game. For now, it's not one that I'm going to say, yes, I want to play Rajahs, it's not quite that level for a rating for me. But personally, I'm still giving this an 8. I think it's really solid. And I fear it's flying under the radar too much. Because I barely even heard of this game when it first came out. It took a while even for the Dice Tower to get a review of it out. And, they were very positive about it as well. But I don't see a lot of people playing this. Not many people have mentioned it. I've not seen it at clubs or conventions or anything. I hadn't seen that many, proper, exposure to it. But then in recent months, people have just suddenly been coming across it and going, oh yeah, this is a really cool game. And that's how I came across it. It got restocked at my, my contact, and I thought, you know what? It does look pretty neat. I need to go and try that game. I'm glad I did. Number 8, and in my collection. So that's it for me. Another Broken Meeple review. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the channel, the Patreon, the podcast, whatever you can. Please help to support. I'm very appreciative of it. For now, doesn't matter whether you've angered the god Ganesh or, decided that chilled monkey brains is actually the delicacy you've always wanted. It's still only a game. So take care. See you next time.
Monkey.